They have won 5 games with a Wednesday win over Maryland when Georgia Tech looked really good against the Terps.
Maybe the best they've played since Brian Gregory has been here.
Georgia Tech versus NC State. So Georgia Tech ball. Dino, what are we looking for pace-wise between the Jackets and the Pack?
NC State's going to try to apply hard ball pressure, taking Georgia Tech out of their comfort zone in their half-court offense.
Robert Carter Jr. with a tough fader. That's one of the freshmen that you pointed out in the one-on-one. Clock issue already.
How many of those have we had this season?
My goodness. So this would be the correctable timing error. So Robert Carter Jr. had the double-double in that Maryland win. 19 points, 10 rebounds. What impressed you when you watched Georgia Tech's win on Wednesday against Maryland?
I think this is one of the better defensive teams, not just in the ACC, but in the country club. They are really intense on the defensive end of the floor. They have to make this game tonight with NC State a 5-on-5 game. And what I mean by that is NC State wants to run.
Wood off the missed 3. It'll be Georgia Tech ball.
And we heard Coach Gottfried yelling out to his guys when Robert Carter caught the ball. Jump on his left shoulder. That's what he likes to do. The scouting report says right-handed jump hook, left shoulder, take that away.
Udofia to his fellow senior Pierre Jordan. This is Daniel Miller off a 16-point effort on Wednesday. Around Richard Howell.
2 paint baskets already for Georgia Tech. That's what they like to do. Score the ball inside, and they're going right there.
Lorenzo Brown, the junior point guard from Roswell, Georgia. Heavy Georgia influence on this NC State team with Richard Howell, Lorenzo Brown. C.J. Leslie played AAU ball with the Georgia team as well. And here is C.J. Leslie drawing the foul.
You know, when the ball goes inside of the post to Miller, he's a willing and able passer, so NC State has to be locked on to those perimeter shooters. He takes his time. A big thing with this fella right here is getting deep position into the post, Carter. That's the most important thing for a post guy, where you are posting up.
Lorenzo Brown told us earlier today, we asked him what was the biggest difference for you last year when you guys got hot in March. He said C.J. Leslie. And that has been a big key for NC State. Leslie misses the first 2 free throws here, but a big key for March's success.
Absolutely. He did not play well against Carolina. Came back a little bit against BC, but he's the barometer for this team.
Georgia Tech ball. And Dino, at least early, looks like some of that momentum from the Wednesday win over Maryland carrying over for Georgia Tech. Jordan misses. Leslie boards, and here's NC State in transition.
Well, Leslie can do that. He could take the ball off the glass and push it himself up the floor in transition.
Lorenzo Brown looking for Leslie. 10 to shoot. Leslie off the shot fake. Howell follows.
That's a big part of NC State's offense. In their last 3 games, they're plus almost 16 per game on the backboard.
Richard Howell, 9th in the nation in offensive rebounding.
The reason they score so many points, Carter, is they get easy baskets. And you get easy baskets in transition, and you get easy baskets right here with second shots.
Richard Howell, who is averaging a double-double on the year. 16 double-doubles. That's 5th in the nation. Warren gets the steal. T.J. Warren ties it at 4. First transition bucket for NC State.
And I like what Brian Gregory did. Put the ball in Mufon Udofia's hands.
This is the freshman Georges Hunt, trapped. Carter Jr. baseline again, just like his first bucket.
You have to take away his right hand, which means jump on that left shoulder. Make him go the other way.
4 early points for Robert Carter Jr. Howell fouled.
And believe it or not, that's a Michigan State play when Lorenzo hit the post and he slid in there and set the screen. So Brian Gregory has seen that a lot from his days with Tom Izzo.
Brian Gregory, twice an assistant at Michigan State. First for Judd Heathcote, then with Tom Izzo, an assistant on that 2000 championship team at Michigan State. And then Brian Gregory, 8 successful years at Dayton.
Give Brian Gregory a lot of credit. He started the senior in this game. The 1 turnover, I'm sure that won't affect them long-term in this basketball game.
So Pierre Jordan on his senior night checks out. Chris Bolden, the freshman, in for Georgia Tech.
Now we're looking at Georgia Tech's normal starting lineup throughout the season.
This is Bolden. High to low for Holsey. That's a goaltend. Count the bucket.
You have to make a decision when you're playing Georgia Tech when they run their high-low offense. You're either going to sag off at the top and give that post-up guy help in that manner, or because Miller has a little bit of a jump shot, 17, 18 feet, you're better served pressuring the passer on that high-low pass.
Howell off the dribble. Tough around Daniel Miller.
Howell using his quickness, a much quicker player than Dan Miller is. Faced up, just went right by him with the bounce.
Pressure on Udofia. Holsey stripped. Finds Miller.
Miller, too much finesse on that shot. Take the ball strong to the basket. He would have been better served doing that.
Scott Wood misses his first look from 3. 8 points in the game for NC State, 6 of them from Richard Howell. Holsey. Over Howell.
And the NC State bench is losing their mind only because the scouting report says on both of those guys, take away their left shoulder.
Howell finds Wood on the back cut, out to Brown.
If you're Mark Godfrey, you're happy with the shot. They shared the ball. Good look, kick out from Wood.
Foul on the floor sends us to an official timeout. Georgia Tech, an early 10-8 lead on NC State.
Previous 3 games, he put up his first 2 career double-doubles. He's averaging 18 points and 10 rebounds. And Coach Gottfried said he likes him in the lineup, not just because he's such a scoring threat, but because of what he can do on the boards. They are a better rebounding team with him in the lineup, and it shows when you look at the numbers. NC State has absolutely crushed the boards the last 3 games. They're out rebounding their opponents by an average margin of 15.7. Carter.
So, Dino, what is that rebounding advantage? How does that play into NC State's transition?
Well, you want to get easy baskets, and one of the ways to get those easy baskets is offensive rebounds. But if you want to run, Carter, you better control the defensive backboard so you can grab the basketball, outlet it, and then head up the floor. You can't run if you don't have the ball.
Last thing that Mark Godfrey talked to his team about at the end of shoot-around today was rebound, turn, and look. Transition, transition, transition. Carter Jr. backing in on Leslie.
He's in there too long. Absolutely. Good call, John Cal.
3 seconds. Gives it back to NC State.
What you like about Georgia Tech, all 5 of their baskets are from their post guys. They're an interior team. They've gone inside to Robert Carter Jr., to Daniel Miller, to Holsey.
Brown finds Howell for the easy 2. 8 of NC State's 10 from Richard Howell.
And that's NC State's UCLA offense, run to perfection.
Holds the offensive rebound, blocked inside. Both Howell and Leslie got a piece. Knocked away from Howell in transition.
Now, this is the UCLA offense. Lorenzo Brown pops back, and then the duck in from the weak side. A wonderful delivery and a finish on the inside. When you're playing Richard Howell, you can't be on the same plane as him. In other words, you have to be higher so the ball just can't enter the post.
Mark Gottfried, an assistant at UCLA on the 1995 championship team. Howell defended tough this time. NC State does keep it. Richard Howell from Marietta, Georgia, played at the legendary Wheeler High School. A lot of Georgia folks wearing NC State red tonight in support of Richard Howell and Lorenzo Brown.
Same high school as J.J. Hicks and Wheeler.
Howell, what a hot start. 10 of the first 12 for NC State for the Georgia native playing in Atlanta. Warren knocks it away. Purvis. And a foul.
Great effort. Getting on the floor, the freshman Warren, which created the run out and the pass to Purvis.
Now we talk about C.J. Leslie being a key for NC State in March. Rodney Purvis, they're hoping that he's starting to come around after slumping. Got a season-high 21 Wednesday night versus BC for last year's North Carolina High School Player of the Year.
Here's why I think he was slumping. When Lorenzo Brown went down, Coach Gottfried wasn't sure who was going to go to the point, so Purvis played some point. They took him out of his position. I think he's comfortable and back in his role now where he was before Lorenzo went out.
Cam Holsey stripped. Wood gives it right back. Jason Morris steals. Lob knocked away by Brown. This is Purvis. To Warren.
Big turnaround. Bad decision by Solomon Poole. They had numbers. Ill-advised pass. Instead of Georgia Tech 2, NC State gets 2.
And Scott Wood and the freshman for Georgia Tech. Obviously, Richard Howell and NC State have the early advantage on those Georgia Tech freshmen.
They really do. They're playing much better. And a lot of times when kids go home, they feel added pressure. But Richard Howell coming back to Georgia playing well.
Lorenzo Brown strips Miller. Wood misses again. There's Warren with a stick back.
They run so hard from defense to offense.
It's a 10-0 run for NC State. Brown has it. Wood saves it. NC State hangs on to the ball.
When the ball's in the air and the ball's on the floor, the guys that get those 50-50 balls, that's going to go a long way to deciding this basketball game. We see NC State get the last two.
Nine to shoot. Howell. That's where Daniel Miller, 6'11", hand right in his face.
Well, because he has elevation and lift on his jump shot, it negates the contest by Daniel Miller.
Georgia Tech's gone nearly 4 minutes without a field goal. Udofia misses. Howell boards. Now Brown pulls up the reins.
Good decision. When you have a running team, sometimes you can't run carelessly. Be aggressive, but don't be reckless.
Warren misses and nearly fouls. Udofia takes it right at his former AAU teammate, Lorenzo Brown. And a foul called on Rodney Purvis. That sends us to an official timeout. It has been a roller coaster ride for NC State thus far this season.
Well, I think they're whole. I think they're healthy, and I think they're playing well. On two of those clips that we saw, Lorenzo Brown wasn't in the game. Virginia only played 10 minutes, did not play against Miami. When he's on the floor, they're a different team. Now, having said that, when Tyler Lewis, the freshman, came in, he played admirably. He played very well, but it's a difference between Tyler and Lorenzo Brown.
Lewis, Brown, and Purvis all on the floor right now. Morris with the turnaround, much-needed bucket for Georgia Tech.
The game most of the time isn't about offenses and defenses, Carter. It's about effort and efficiency. And right now, NC State's leading in those two categories.
Howell again. How about Richard Howell with 14 points in less than 10 minutes in the homecoming game for the senior from Marietta. Leslie steals it from Miller. Lewis fouled.
And how about the pass from Lorenzo Brown? Wonderful pocket pass. It's right in the seam between both of those guys. And Richard Howell, of course, finished the play, but a marvelous pass. Beautiful pass.
So when you look at NC State, you can understand why they were a popular preseason Final Four pick, why they were preseason favorites to win the ACC. They still have the potential for a run like that in the NCAA tournament.
They absolutely do. As a coach, and you go through the season, you talk about chemistry, toughness, no distractions. I think they have good chemistry. I don't think they've had many distractions. The only question for me with this team is toughness. I know it's in their DNA. You don't go to the Sweet 16 without toughness. But, Carter, toughness manifests itself on the glass, the backboard, which they're a terrific rebounding team, and, most importantly, on the defensive end of the floor. And I think that's where they need to pick it up. Coach Gottfried knows that. These kids know that. When they start defending, they can be an elite team.
Sounds like you're pushing Jay Billis's new book about toughness. 10-point advantage for NC State. Look at the 8 turnovers, 6 steals by NC State in the early going. That's exactly the opposite of what Georgia Tech was hoping for. Brown, deep three. Neither team has made a 3 in the game. They still haven't.
Great hustle by Tyler Lewis. He actually stopped the ball, and then he played the first pass.
Purvis down the lane, wide open.
Explosive. Carter, good players beat their man. Great players beat their man, and then they beat the help. His quickness to the basket, there was no help available for Rodney Purvis. Really explosive as a freshman.
Udofia on the second chance. This is Tyler Lewis resetting.
And as we mentioned before, Tyler Lewis played well in Lorenzo Brown's absence.
And now they're on the floor together with Richard Howell.
Nothing breaks your defense down more than dribble penetration. As Brown gets in there, the help comes over, which makes the passing lane available for the dish.
20 of NC State's 26 has been in the paint. Brown on the floor. Timeout, NC State. Big Monday is back on ESPNU, featuring 6th
league. Because of who they're playing against, does it soften them a little bit? Are they going to be tough enough come NCAA tournament time? But I really like that basketball team.
I remember a few years ago when the Wake Forest team coached by Dino Gaudio went to Spokane and did something that virtually no one does, a non-conference win in Spokane against Gonzaga.
Tough.
I'm not sure if anybody's done it since.
A lot of teams will go up there and not play in the kennel, but we played well that game. Al-Farouq Amino, Ishmael Smith were outstanding.
8 to shoot. Leslie. Tough one around Daniel Miller.
And a tough matchup for Daniel Miller. Calvin much quicker than Daniel Miller off the bounce.
Leslie knocks it away. Diving on the floor to save it, and now it's going to roll out. But Mark Gottfried on the floor to applaud the effort by C.J. Leslie, tracking down the loose ball.
As he should. Hustle play by Calvin Leslie. Georgia Tech struggling right now.
Wolfpack has 6 steals. They forced Georgia Tech into 8 turnovers and turned that into 10 points. And a lot of those paint points, 22 of them, from Richard Howe. 16 points in the first half on 7 of 9 shooting for the senior from Marietta, Georgia. First made 3 of the game.
Brandon Reed was outstanding in their last game. He had 17 points. Now, this kid started all last year coming off the bench, accepting his role.
TJ Warren inside. More paint points for NC State. Howell and Warren have combined for 24 of NC State's 30. Cam Holsey. Let's check in with Allison.
Guys, in that Georgia Tech huddle, they were talking about a lot of the same things that we've been talking about. The 8 turnovers really killing them right now. And then their transition D, they said, has to be better. They have to stop giving NC State the easy buckets.
So how do you do that for Georgia Tech?
For Georgia Tech, what's hurting their transition defense is their offense. The turnovers are killing them.
Udofia fouled on the way to the hoop by Leslie, and Mufon Udofia goes down hard. Oliver transferred. Glenn Rice Jr.'s in the NBDL, which means tonight on senior night, Mufon Udofia is the only member of that 6-player recruiting class who's honored, along with Pierre Jordan, who transferred in from Florida State.
Paul Hewitt did a marvelous job here. He really did. You know what Paul did wrong? He recruited too well. All those guys left early for the NBA, and that's a difficult thing in our game today. And, you know, maybe we talk about that a little more later, but trying to figure out whether guys should just go out of high school into the league, or if they come to college, they stay 2 years, or we implement the baseball rule, which is 3 years. But it hurts you when your best players leave every year. The NBA would never tolerate unlimited free agency. That's like what we have in college basketball.
When you talk about parity and upsets in March Madness, that certainly plays a big factor. Udofia hustling for the offensive rebound. Told us earlier today, I feel like the last man standing, and he stuck through the coaching change, through losing seasons. On his senior night, Udofia trying to lead Georgia Tech back.
Now, here's what you love about the play. Miller just ate up the lane there, really deep on his post up. Then you don't even need a post move. Settle in, CJ. Settle for the shot on that one.
Into Robert Carter Jr. Leslie fouls Carter Jr. Let's go back to the last Georgia Tech bucket.
Well, watch how deep he is in the lane. That's exactly where you want to be. If you're inside that restricted area arc on your post up, you've done a good job as a big guy. You don't have to worry about drop step, jump hook, up and under. You're so deep, catch it, go right to the cup.
Robert Carter Jr., who had 4 of the first 6 in the hot start for Georgia Tech.
Now, Carter, they're coming back, and George's Hunt has been invisible thus far in the first half, their leading scorer. So they might have to try to get him off a little bit. Maybe a ball screen, maybe a pin down action for him to get him going a little bit.
Georgia Tech has cut the lead in half from 14 points to 7. Brown to Howard. Brown gets the offensive rebound. Blocked. Tech on the run. Robert Carter Jr. stripped by Richard Howard. Scott Wood. Richard Howell rips the rebound. Blocked on the stick back. Now he draws the foul.
Hard playing game. These two teams are going at it, especially on the inside. Howard players playing strong. High intensity in this one tonight. Because they can't run. I mean, the kid almost, he never practiced for 2 months. That performance was amazing. Amazing. Like, you're wondering if his legs are underneath of him to get his jump shot off because he hasn't practiced. As good a performance as we've seen all year, coupled with the injury, just fantastic.
And how about Doug McDermott yesterday with 41 in his senior days? That's two of the best performances of the year in college basketball, both yesterday.
Both of those guys told their teammates, hop on my back, guys. I got you.
You saw a pretty good one on Thursday when Joe Harris in Virginia took out Duke.
Superb. Joe Harris is one of those guys, like McDermott, that plays the game, not just with their body, but from the shoulders up. A real high IQ for the game. They read screens.
Well, Richard Howell is tossing in for terrific performances to close out the year. 18 in the first half for the NC State senior. Now he fouls on the other end, but already 18 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 steals in the first half for the Marietta, Georgia native.
Richard Howell, Scott Wood, seniors. As it comes down the stretch of seasons, it means a little bit more to them. They want to go out. They went to the Sweet 16 this year. Last year, they're going to the tournament again. They want to run a little deeper. They know it's coming to an end. They want to go out on the right note.
Now, Richard Howell's career high is 23. He's gotten that twice this year, including the game at Duke. Third chance here for Georgia Tech. Finally, the three goes down. Chris Bolden makes it a 6-point game.
Mark Gottfried isn't happy with that. It's inexcusable free throw to not box out, and it costs him a 3.
Brown bounce to Purvis. Play on. Bolden again. Into the hands of Holsey.
Offensive rebounding, effort, and energy, and we're seeing that out of Georgia Tech right now.
Holsey rips through on Howell, who gets the block. His first of the game. Tech keeps it 23 to shoot. Well-deserved rest for Richard Howell.
Carter, for me, it would drive me nuts when the ball went into the post because 3 things are going to happen. They're going to score, you're going to foul them, or they're going to miss the shot. 2 to 3 are bad. We really tried to front the post. I just didn't want the ball going into the block area.
Just outside the paint, foul against NC State.
And what Coach Gottfried's upset about, Purvis down on this end, jump shot, might have hit his hand. The call down here, he wants it both ways.
So a good discussion with Brian O'Connell. George's Hunt. First point of the game for the freshman who leads Georgia Tech in scoring at 10.5 a game. A 4-point game. NC State led by as many as 14. Turnover by NC State. Purvis stepped out.
And the reason he stepped out is because of the bad pass from Lorenzo Brown. The pass wasn't on top and wasn't on target, too high of a pass, which drifted in towards the sideline. One of the few bad passes by Lorenzo Brown tonight.
NC State had a 16-2 run. Georgia Tech has responded with a 14-4 run.
and charge that basket to T.J. Warren, not showing on the ball screen. The guard for Georgia Tech cannot turn the corner like that, but T.J. Warren is out there.
Foul called on Bolden.
Now, on the penetration, the screen. See, Warren's behind his man. He needs to show high on that. His back should be towards one sideline. He should be facing the other so the guard cannot turn the corner.
17 fouls now against Georgia Tech. So 1-1 for Lorenzo Brown and NC State.
Now, surprisingly, NC State won field goal in the last 6 minutes simply because Georgia Tech hasn't turned it over as much as they did early, so they don't have the runouts. But this is a very good offensive team, Carter, in the half court. They have to just do a better job of executing.
NC State averages 78 points per game. That's 9th in the nation.
And one reason is they score off a transition, and they're very efficient in the half court. We just haven't seen that the last 6 minutes of this half.
Brown gets them both.
And for the first time tonight, we're seeing NC State 2-3 zone.
Why do you think the change at this point?
Maybe they're going to do a better job on the backboard and keep the basketball out of the lane.
Udofia. On his senior night, Mufon Udofia makes it a 1-point game.
Now, here's what we're seeing. We're seeing NC State trying to shoot their way out of a problem instead of trying to execute their way out of a problem. And that's the freshman Warren with the shot. Mark Godfrey's telling his guys, fellas, let's sit down, let's execute our offense.
NC State still hasn't made it 3 in the game. Bolden, entry pass stolen by Leslie. Leslie and Brown have a communication about who's going to set things up in the half-court offense.
Low Brown said, give me the rock.
You see the 3-second differential between shot and game clock. A screen from Leslie. Brown gets it to him. Good look for Warren.
Very unselfish from Calvin Leslie.
Step back, Bolden. NC State clings to a 3-point lead at the half. The Wolfpack led by as many as 14. But Georgia Tech storming back to make it 36.
Close out against Florida State and Maryland, so it should be an exciting finish to the regular season in the ACC, guys.
I had Virginia against Duke, and this game, Carter, is so important when and where you play somebody. The where for Virginia at D.C. wasn't great. The when was horrible coming off of that. Wow!
And Georgia Tech at home trying to come back on NC State again. That's Julian Royal with the baseline dunk.
That where was really good. The place he took that shot from.
First points of the game for Julian Royal. Emphatic. And a Howell again. Warren, offensive board, but he stepped on the baseline.
CJ has to keep the ball in front of him. The hardest thing to do in the game today is guard the ball one-on-one. That's why you need help. When he got blown by, help defender has to meet the penetration outside of the lane line.
NC State had only 3 first-half turnovers, already 3 in the second half. NC State led this game by as many as 14 in the first half. Howell board, Wolfpack on the run. Warren.
Beautiful pass from Lorenzo Brown in transition. You got to finish that one.
Reed splits the D. Georgia Tech missing opportunities to tie it up. Brown, no-look pass, finished off by T.J. Warren.
Wonderful vision. Now, Georgia Tech has to be careful. They don't want to be seduced into playing at this fast a pace. It's advantageous for NC State if it's up and down.
Inside the Royal, foul by T.J. Warren, his second.
Terrific vision. He has his head up at all times. And because of his size, Carter, he could throw it over smaller defending guards.
Now, Lorenzo Brown, you've had him last couple of years at the Chris Paul point guard camp. What kind of development have you seen from Lorenzo?
At the camp, he fit in perfectly with some outstanding guards. There were some great guards in the camp. Trey Burke, Aaron Kraft, Peyton Siva. And Chris does a wonderful job with these point guards, talking about how to come off ball screens. Don't run the big into a foul, which means let him get up there, get set, take your man below the screen. It's an unbelievable teaching session for the top 20 point guards in America. Lorenzo Brown was a part of all of that.
Guy who didn't play point guard as a freshman, took over that role last year, led NC State to the Sweet 16. Now he's one of the top point guards in college basketball. There's a foul on Morris. That's a really good list of college point guards.
And I apologize. Some of the other great guys that were there, we couldn't put on the list. We didn't want to make it an eye chart. But Lorenzo Brown, Trey Burke, Isaiah Cannon from Murray State, of course.
Loose ball taken away by Georgia Tech. Morris to Royal. Tipped out. Wolfpack on the run. Purvis turns it over.
NC State may be overpassing. Rodney Purvis, you're right at the rim. Take that one.
Another chance for Georgia Tech to tie or take the lead. Instead, it's ping-ponged around. And the Jackets get it right back. Who wants the basketball?
A lot of activity, not a lot of productivity.
Not a lot of valuing the basketball the last minute or so of the game. And that's going to be a possession arrow. Georgia Tech keeps it.
So many open court situations, but a lot of bad decisions we've seen lately.
That's a good summary.
Our lane at Xavier used to be blue, the lane area. We say if you get to the blue, it's you. In other words, if you get into the lane, take that shot.
That's when you were at Xavier with Pete Gillen and then Skip Prosser.
We have a lot of good players, great head coaching from Pete Gillen, and won a lot of basketball games there.
That's when you had to pull out the truth tree, right?
Absolutely.
That is a push-off foul called on Robert Carter Jr., his second. Another missed chance for Georgia Tech to tie or take the lead. A Tuesday journey to the tourney continues with a big lead.
Well, we need to take the basketball inside. Richard Howell in the first half is 7 for 11 from the field. He has one shot attempt in the first, in essence, 8 minutes of the half. Let's go inside. He's been very productive for us. Let's take the basketball inside.
Tyler Lewis in to run the point with Lorenzo Brown getting a rest right now for NC State. The freshman from Statesville, North Carolina, running the point. Scott Wood, first bucket of the night for the NC State senior.
And we created the space for Scott Wood. A wonderful read coming off the baseline screen. A little fade to the corner and the pull-up.
Solomon Poole across court, taken away by NC State. Purvis pushes.
Now let's see if they go right back to Scott Wood after hitting that jump shot.
Lewis is looking for him. Here's Wood. NC State still hasn't made a three in this game. Leslie goes into the band to try and save it. That sends us to another official timeout. Despite no made threes in the game, only 2 points from
Space for him for the pull-up jump shot.
that. Looked like a very similar play that Scott Wood beat Clemson on a late three off a screen from Richard Howell.
Absolutely. He's a three-point shooter, so you want to take him off the three-point line, so you chase him. It's almost like you're playing train with your little kid. Chase him so he curls into the lane.
He's made 312 threes in his career. None tonight. None for NC State tonight.
And they're still up.
Georgia Tech, time and time again, they've gotten close. Haven't led it since it was 10-8. So despite the opportunities to tie or take the lead, it is still NC State hanging on to a 4-point edge on the road.
First 5 field goals of the game for Georgia Tech were all by their post guys, and they've gone away from that.
Fouls on Solomon Poole. And a discussion at the scores table. John Cal will ask to take a look. Another clock issue.
Another clock issue that they're looking at.
So the foul was on Solomon Poole, and then we'll see where the clock was at the point of the foul.
What you love about Scott Wood, Carter, is we had the young guy, Josh Howard, and as a junior, Coach Prosser goes to him and says, Josh, you're just an average player because you're a 3 to 6 guy. In other words, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, as we're looking at the clock here now. He goes, when you become a 6 to 3 guy, in other words, when you come early and stay late, you'll be a great player. The next year, unanimous ACC Player of the Year. That's what Scott Wood does. He works on his game. He spends time in the gym. He gets up a lot of shots.
Look at the ACC record book. He is one behind our colleague Jay Williams, and we wish Jay and his family well. He's with his family this weekend. So Scott Wood is 1 3-pointer away from 8th place on that list, headed by J.J. Redick.
Because he spends time in the gym. He works on his game. Let's see.
Lewis with the first made 3 of the night for NC State.
Wonderful read on the kick out from the big guy. And Tyler Lewis has played well. In the absence of Lorenzo Brown, real positive addition to the Wolfpack team.
Because he looks like Opie. Some people dismiss his game. He was a McDonald's All-American in high school at Oak Hill. Miller has a response. Daniel Miller dunks it down.
And again, dribble penetration. Nothing hurts your defense more than when the ball gets into the lane.
Leslie somehow spins out. Fight for the loose ball, won by Bolden in Georgia Tech. Udofia attacks, swatted away by Leslie. Wood on the floor. Lewis to Leslie. Foul going to the rim.
And the youngster made great decision, great read with the bounce pass. Take the ball in the break to a guy that is a finisher. Calvin Leslie's a finisher.
So Lewis stepping in here with Lorenzo Brown still on the NC State bench. And I don't want to speculate about Lorenzo Brown. Now he is going to check back into the game. Brown's had a problem with the ankle. Looked like he was getting stretched out for potentially cramps here in the second half. Now Lorenzo Brown's back into the game. Leslie's only 1 for 5 from the line tonight.
Here's the thing with this NC State team that concerns you. They don't have a lot of depth. They don't play a lot of guys. When Tyler Lewis could come in and give them quality minutes, that's a big addition for Mark Gottfried's Wolfpack.
Mufon Udofia, the point guard for Georgia Tech, on his senior night. Miller has to go up and get that one. Bolden. Back to a 4-point game. offensive foul. Marcus Georges-Hunt slid in to draw the charge on Warren. And then Carter Jr. limping back to the Georgia Tech bench.
You can intimidate on defense with the shot block, or you can intimidate with the charge, and that's what Georgia Tech does. They use the charge to stop your penetration.
Looks like Carter rolled his ankle coming down on C.J. Leslie. Bolden. Brown to Warren. Good finish for T.J. Warren.
Wonderful Euro step. The step through took the defender out of position.
NC State trying to pull away. Wolfpack led by as many as 14 in the first half. Georges-Hunt misses the three, play on. Leslie draws a foul on Julian Royal.
The reason NC State is so good in transition is they run hard from defense to offense. They have terrific spacing, pass on time, on target, and the Euro step gets him to the rim.
14 points in the game for the freshman T.J. Warren.
Now, here's what Georgia Tech does on baseline out of bounds. They put a big guy on the ball, they switch all screens, and try to deny the ball in bounds. Now they're trying to switch back right now.
Looks like Udofia guarding T.J. Warren. Lewis resets. Lewis pull up, boarded by Georges-Hunt. Into Cam Holsey. 4-point game again.
Calvin Leslie cannot allow him to get that deep in the lane.
Howell. Kick out to Brown. Georgia Tech brings it back down by 4. Into Holsey again, facing up on Howell. Foul called on Richard Howell. Georgia Tech trying to fight back again.
And Holsey on the block using...
There's momentum building back around Georgia Tech that was down, especially last year when they didn't have a home court. All the renovations were going on. They played a couple different venues around Atlanta, including Phillips Arena. Just 5-10 right now in the ACC, but you can feel some momentum coming back. A win tonight would help, and it's a 2-point game.
Good young kids in this program.
Leslie silences the crowd with a chance at a 3-point play.
A great call by Mark Godfrey going to C.J. Leslie on the blocks. When he faces, the quickness factor is readily seen. He goes right by him. Plays strong. Can take on contact and finish at the rim.
And that foul on Robert Carter Jr. is his 4th. 9 second-half points for C.J. Leslie. It was Richard Howell who led the way with 18 in the first half. Now C.J. Leslie, 9 second-half points with plenty of time left for NC State.
And amazingly, Carter, Richard Howell has not scored in the second half.
And NC State has only hit 1 3 in this game. Second personal on Rodney Purvis. Next foul against NC State puts Tech in the bonus. Miller wide open. He passes on it. Bolden gets it back.
And you're seeing NC State switch the ball screens now. And there's the mismatch. Georgia Tech recognizes it.
That's an easy offensive foul call on Cam Holsey.
When you're switching, as a coach, you ask yourself, what's going to get us beat? The open shot because we're hedging, or the mismatch? It's the open shot. So we saw the mismatch, and Scott Wood did a phenomenal job staying in his position, taking the charge. So I switched. They're not hurting us with it. That's a foul.
Scott Wood hits the deck. Play on.
You can't bump cutters like that when they're coming up through the lane area. That's a foul.
Now 9 to shoot. Brown to the rim. Uncontested.
Carter, I called a Kentucky game 3 weeks ago, and of course Kentucky's practicing. There's 10 NBA guys there. They all look at me and go, your game's more physical than ours. And they're right, it's true.
As in the college game has gotten more physical than the NBA game.
Yes, the physicality of the game is amazing. And scouting has been really advanced. But the physicality of the game, walling up big guys on the baseline, bumping cutters like we just saw, that stuff doesn't happen at the NBA level.
Seems like that officiating point needs to come more from rules committee and implementation and the people who are overseeing the officials, and not from the guys in stripes themselves.
Absolutely.
Well, NC State has quieted the crowd with a 5-0 run. Georgia's Hunt misses at the rim, bothered by Howell. Brian Gregory yelling at his guys, get a stop, get a stop.
We're seeing NC State run a baseline runner action with 2 screeners on the block for Scott Wood.
Good look. Purvis fouled off the look from C.J. Leslie with a shot clock winding down.
And give Purvis a lot of credit, because as soon as his guy turned his head to look at the ball, he made the cut to the basket. As soon as his guy loses vision of him, don't just stand, be active, and he was. That's why he's at the free throw line.
Savvy move from the freshman Rodney Purvis, who had 4 points in the first half. And Purvis coming off a season-high 21, it's a career high. He's a freshman. A terrific potential for Rodney Purvis. If he can get hot for NC State, again, a potential for a run. Right now, Joe Lunardi projects NC State as an 8 seed in the Midwest, which means a tricky 8-9 game. Wolfpack hoping to win a few at the end of the regular season and the ACC tournament, bump up the seed lines.
I know one thing, if I'm a 1 seed, having to play these guys in the 3rd round, 8-9 winner, tough game.
Miller stepped through.
Beautiful up and under. He took the ball to the midline, lifted the defense, and stepped through.
Leslie looking for help. Still 12 to shoot. Lorenzo Brown resets. The junior point guard from Roswell, Georgia. Going at his old AAU teammate and gets Udofia to foul him. Advantage Lorenzo Brown this time down. He and the Pack lead it by 7.
You're looking at your experienced guys. Let's take care of the basketball. Let's limit Georgia Tech to 1 contested shot. Let's make sure we wrap up the possession with a rebound. And if they do that, up 7 here, we're thinking they can get out of Atlanta with a W.
Allison listened into that last NC State huddle.
Yeah, guys, Mark Gottfried big on ball pressure during that last timeout, going over a lot of their philosophies defensively that he wants them to adhere to. Ball pressure big, also having active hands. He said you cannot get stuck with just having your hands down. You guys need to be looking for the deflection, moving your hands. Also, guys, they have an eye on Robert Carter Jr. with 4 fouls. They wouldn't mind getting the 5th on him.
Georgia Tech will try to become the first team to come from behind on NC State in the last 5 minutes of a game this season. The Wolfpack have closed out every game that they've led in the last 5 minutes.
And I'm sure coming out of the timeout, Brian Gregory is not happy with that shot by Georges Hunt.
Scott Wood still made only 1 shot in the game, and yet NC State leads by 8.
When he's coming off of those screens on the baseline, Carter, he's not bringing his left shoulder, his outside shoulder around so that he's square to the basket.
Here's Carter Jr. with 4. Reed behind the screen, air ball.
2 possessions, 2 bad shots. I don't think Brian Gregory's happy with those as he's shaking his head down on one knee on the bench.
He will make a substitution. Chris Bolden's coming in. Leslie faces up on Carter Jr. C.J. Leslie with a strong second half.
You need a better contest of that shot. You have to make him miss, not hope he misses. Get out there, contest the jump shot.
A 10-2 run by NC State. C.J. Leslie, 11 second half points.
The face-up. I love Mark.
Next NC State foul will put Georgia Tech in the bonus.
And let's see, Carter, if Georgia Tech can score the ball, whether they're going to extend their defense, pressing NC State as they try to make a comeback from down 10.
Let me correct myself. NC State has the double bonus. Next Wolfpack foul puts Georgia Tech to a 1-1. Wood nearly steals it from Carter Jr. Off the shot fake, Carter Jr. misses the 3.
Now, NC State, the clock is more of your opponent than Georgia Tech is.
Only 1 field goal in the last 5 minutes for Georgia Tech. They repeatedly had cut it to 2, and the offense has dried up since. Yellow Jackets extend defensively. Brown attacks Udofia. Udofia. It's going to be a possession arrow. Let's see.
I don't think the ball hit the rim, did it?
John Cowell.
Yeah, they have the shot clock at 6 at the present time.
And indeed, that's John Cowell coming over to explain there was no change of possession. So shot clock at 6. NC State ball. Wolfpack officiating crew to try and get the explanation. But for now, looks like 6 seconds remaining on the shot clock. NC State ball for the baseline inbound. We'll get an explanation when we can. Good lob play. Leslie couldn't hang on.
It was a great lob play. Pull that thing down with 2 hands and go back up with it.
Bolden misses a big 3. Miller misses the follow dunk. That's a couple critical misses for Georgia Tech with a minute 12 to go.
I'm not sure whether they were looking at whether the ball hit the rim a second time. And here comes John Cowell. He's going to give us a little bit of an explanation.
That foul was on Robert Carter Jr., so he is fouled out of the game with 8 points. Carter Jr., the freshman who was second on the team in scoring for Georgia Tech, has 8 points, but he's fouled out tonight.
And John Cowell just came over and told us that they told the shot clock operator, you did the exact right thing. It was 6 seconds. Good job with the shot clock.
No change of possession, no reset of the shot clock.
No change of possession, no reset. What would that take, 25 minutes?
Now to go even further in depth, that was That's a correctable timing error. They're checking to see if there's a correctable timing error on the next dead ball. That's one of the instances where you can go to the replay monitor. Can't go to see if the shot was before the end of the shot clock. Everybody got it right. Three goes down from Morris, giving Georgia Tech some life. It's a 7-point game with 54.6 to go. Monday all-time ACC free throw shooting for the career Scott Wood, number 15 for NC State. Instead, it's Tyler Lewis, who is solid as well. Lewis is right around 80% in his freshman year. In fact, he is 86% now in his freshman year. So 3 really good free throw shooters on the floor for NC State late game situations with Lewis, Wood, and Lorenzo Brown.
And as a coach in this situation, now let's put ourselves in Mark Godfrey's shoes. After the free throws, and if you're NC State, you're hoping they're in, we might want to pick up three-quarter court. Now, we're not trying to deny or steal the ball, but make Georgia Tech catch the ball going back to the baseline so you burn time off the clock.
Lewis only gets 1 of 2, 8-point game. Udofia pushes, misses. Big rebound, Scott Wood. Now Georgia Tech. Not fouling yet. Keep away game.
I don't know why Scott Wood just doesn't keep the ball. They have to foul him.
Instead, it's Lorenzo Brown headed to the line for 1-1. But again, Lorenzo Brown is almost 80%, 77% on the year, and he is 3 for 4 tonight.
Now, Tyler Lewis defensively, because of his size and his lack of lateral quickness, is a little bit of a liability. He has a hard time keeping Udofia in front of him.
2 games left in the regular season for NC State. Wednesday at home against Wake Forest. That's an opportunity for payback after the Demon Deacons upset NC State earlier this year in Winston-Salem. And then at Florida State. Those are 2 games that NC State should win, which means NC State has a chance to finish the year at 12-6 in the ACC and get a first-round bye in the tournament.
Amazing from where they were.
Georgia Tech has had so many chances to tie or get back in this game. It's 8 points now with 21.3 to go. Georgia Tech repeatedly had it to 2 points, never able to tie or take the lead. 10. That means that Maryland is on the outside looking in as of now.
And one of the other things that's going to hurt Maryland is their non-conference schedule is really poor, and a very high number in their non-conference strength of schedule.
Including a loss to Old Dominion. That is a flagrant 1. What used to be called an intentional foul, now called a flagrant 1.
Intentional foul charge to number 0, Mufon Udofia, his 3rd. Tyler Lewis has a lot.
Grab the jersey, which is automatic.
Automatic.
So that means Lewis goes to the line. NC State has the basketball, and NC State's going to escape from Atlanta with a tough test from Georgia Tech, but the Yellow Jackets unable to come back and take the lead in the second half. NC State will be 21-8 and 10-6 in the ACC, with Wake Forest coming to Raleigh on Wednesday.
And the guys from NC State, I think they might have a little bit of hate in their heart after what happened at the Joe Coliseum in Winston-Salem.
You know, that was looked upon as such a bad loss at the time. Now, then we saw Miami lose at Winston, and then the bevy of upsets in college basketball. Penn State over Michigan, TCU over Kansas, and on and on and on. That was just early that NC State lost that game on the road at Wake.
I think it's only a matter of time, Carter. I don't think it's going to happen this year. Within 3 years, we're going to see a 16 beat a 1. In essence, when TCU beat Kansas, that's what that was like. When Penn State beat Michigan, now, of course, those were on their home courts. I think it's only a matter of time, and a nice round of applause for Mufon Udofia, senior day. Played very, very hard, a Georgia native. He's meant a lot to this program.
Said he felt like the last man standing. Had a lot of people in his ear telling him that, hey, you should leave with the coaching change when Paul Hewitt and his staff got fired and Brian Gregory came in. And Mufon said, I knew who I was as a person, and I knew I was going to stick through whatever adversity. And said that, especially as a senior, knowing that he was going to be the one who had to buy into what Brian Gregory and his staff were doing to impart that to the younger players.
And remember this, Georgia Tech, one of the great academic institutions in the country. A degree from the school for this young man right here, whenever his playing days are over, are going to open doors for him anywhere and everywhere in the country.
On track to get his degree in business management this May. Coming up next is SEC storied Miracle 3, the story of the 2008 SEC tournament. That was moved from the Georgia Dome to what was then known as Alexander Memorial Coliseum, this building. Lorenzo Brown to the line to try and close it out, the junior from Roswell, Georgia.
A lot of preseason expectations for NC State. And I'm telling you, I think they're trending towards what everyone talked about in the preseason.
This will be the 5th win in 6 games for NC State. Only loss during that stretch was at North Carolina. They beat Duke in North Carolina in Raleigh and then lost those return games at Duke and at UNC. It will be the 3rd road win of the season for NC State. The 3rd in ACC play. The Wolfpack now 10-6 in ACC competition with a 70-57 win tonight at Georgia Tech. 45 wins.